Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 of the advanced build guide for the bow post Azure rathalos update. This is a repeat of part 1 but with updated sections to account for the Azure rathalos bow not being a fast charge bow. This is going to be an extensive one, so strap in. Timestamps in the description box, but I urge you not to skip through so you understand everything better. A lot of research was done, and I'd like to give my special thanks to the Black Cat 7, an active member in Singapore's bow R&D community chat, for providing me with definitive data helping to make this video possible. I'll be covering everything from raw to all elemental builds plus part-breaking builds, and diving deep into build damage comparisons. All chart and build infographics used in this video are available in the link in my description box. So let's get into it. I'd like to preface by stressing that focus is everything for bows. With the Azure rathalos update, there is a helm carrying 2 levels in focus, which is huge, and I'll be going through how that changes our setups. For any of you that have played around with mhn.quest as much as me, you'll realize that focus contributes to highest damage numbers in the calculator, more than any other parameter like weakness exploit, critical eye, or burst. The reason for this is that it's assuming 100% uptime of attacks. This is because the calculator cannot count in the time you spend dodging, getting hit, getting staggered, etc. The numbers are also not reflective to bows like the Black B.Blos that needs only 2 charges for a max charged shot. I'll refer to it as a fast charge bow. So even if you've checked builds out for yourself, you will find this helpful as I will be discussing these nuances through my video and sharing better estimates for fast charge bows. Before I get into the first section of the video for raw builds, I'd like to first reinforce the standard for bow gameplay. In general, you want to be a good dodger and utilize high attack speed to your advantage, or you will not be maximizing your damage output, and high focus levels like 5 can actually hurt you, especially on raw setups. Without further ado, let's get into it. Raw builds. In the old raw builds, we used to run something along these 3 variations. Focus 5, Burst 2, Focus 4, Burst 2, Critical Eye 2, Focus 4, Weakness Exploit 2, Critical Eye 2. But it's time to level up. This is the new recommended raw build to go for, giving you 5 Focus, 2 Burst, and 2 Critical Eye. This is especially good for the Black B.Blos bow, as the level 2 Critical Eye will negate the negative affinity on the bow by half, reducing the chances you get negative affinity procs to just negative 15%. In simple terms, this will improve your RNG across the board. The bow has just gotten even more overpowered. Next, we have an alternative build running 5 Focus and 3 Burst. This is not a bad choice as well. Though lesser in damage output than the recommended, not too big of a difference. But do note, if you're not able to keep the burst buff active in tough hunts, which might happen more for the B.Blos bow, but less for the Black B.Blos bow. The last option I'd like to introduce to you is what I call the min-maxing sniper build for scripted hunts. This build will give you 5 focus, 2 burst, and 2 weakness exploits. This is heavily dependent on your ability to target weak spots, so you need to play to perfection or it's not gonna be better than the other 2 builds. It does rate the highest in total damage output of all the 3 builds, but it's a small margin. Use this if you're squeezing every bit of damage or doing repeated attempts for a particular scripted hunt. By scripted, I mean you're looking for the monster to perform certain move sets, or you're intentionally playing in a way to induce certain moves. This is pretty advanced, so if you know, you know. If you want to be the very best with this min-max build, check this short video out explaining a simple trick that you would need to implement. I would like to add that this build works best on a fast charge bow. This is for the 3rd charge playstyle. It looks something like this. I'll be making a separate video to explain these mechanics better, but basically you don't want to be firing off your 2nd shot. So let's compare the builds. We are looking at the alternative, Focus 5, Burst 3, recommended, Focus 5, Burst 2, Critical Eye 2, and Sniper, Focus 5, Burst 2, Weakness Exploit 2. The light blue represents the B.Blos bow, and dark blue for the black B.Blos bow. These numbers are directly adapted off from mhn.quest, but it does not take into account the black B.Blos bow being a fast charge bow. So the difference between the bows is kind of more like this. Basically, black B.Blos 25% more. Theoretically, it's somewhere between 25 to 29%. Thank you once again to the Black Cat 7 for verifying this estimate. Two conclusions here. You should go for the recommended set, Focus 5, Burst 2, Critical Eye 2 for general use. And the black B.Blos bow is a superior weapon, but who doesn't already know that? I would like to repeat that the sniper build would really be best on just the black B.Blos bow. But for you proficient regular B.Blos bow users, maybe you can achieve a good result with it. So it's really to your own discretion. Now, if you're like me and enjoy playing elemental sets, then you're in for a ride. First up, fire. In the old fire build, we used to run 5 fire attack, 3 focus, and 2 weakness exploits. But it's time to level up. This is the new recommended fire build, giving you total skills of 4 focus and 5 fire. But there is a set that supposedly does better at higher weapon grade levels. Let's look at the alternative build. I call this build the expert build. You'll be running 5 focus and 4 fire. It leads to the most optimal damage output at max grade. This build is at best recommended if your Anja or Rathalos bow is more than grade 10.2, and for Azure Rathalos if your weapon grade is more than 10.3. We'll get into why later. Lastly, we have a sniper build. This is the exact same build for the min-maxing sniper build I had introduced for B.Blos and black B.Blos weapon. This build will get you Focus 5, Fire 1, 2 Weakness Exploit, and 2 Burst. Caution, this is a very risky set, and really dependent on your ability to target weak spots. What you're looking at is the Expert, Focus 5, Fire 4, Recommended, Focus 4, Fire 5, and Sniper, Focus 5, Fire 1, 2 Weakness Exploit, and 2 Burst. The lightest blue represents Anjanath, medium blue represents Rathalos, and dark blue represents Azure Rathalos. These numbers are per mhn.quest. The difference in damage between the expert and recommended sets as per mhn.quest is 2%, with the expert set winning. But important fact, numbers on MHN are not all telling. Elemental attack is more beneficial at lower weapon grade levels. I'm sure some of you have heard this sweeping statement, but what constitutes lower weapon grade levels? According to the numbers, it's somewhere in the realms of grade 10. I know, that doesn't seem too low. Here is a graph where you can observe that. This chart is applicable to the Anjanath bow. The yellow line represents Fire 5, Focus 4, while the brown line represents Fire 4, Focus 5. We can see that the Fire 4 build only overtakes Fire 5 right at the end. The Focus 4 Fire 5 at lower weapon grade levels beat Focus 5 Fire 4 build until they eventually meet a crossover at grade 10.2, where afterwards the Focus 5 build overtakes. This phenomenon happens similarly in the Azure Rathalos bow. In this graph, the crossover happens at grade 10.3. I don't have one for Rathalos, but following this conceptual understanding, due to Rathalos having highest base stats, it should be somewhere at grade 10.1 or slightly earlier. Conclusion here is, go for the recommended Focus 4, Fire 5 for your Fire Elemental setup, no matter which weapon you choose. There is an additional explanation by researcher Pt.2 that will help you understand why Focus 5 isn't all that great over Focus 4 and even Focus 3. I will be citing it later in the water setup comparison section, so keep watching to find out. Condolences to all Focus 5 addicts. I know it's fun to use it, but if you're going for optimal performance, then do Focus 4. I'll share a bit more opinions about weapon choices later. Next up, we have water. In the old setup, we used to run 5 water attack with just 2 focus. I can't tell you how much that made me feel like a snail. This build will give you total skills of Focus 3, Water 5. I know, just 1 more point in focus, but that's the best we can get. If you absolutely want to run more in focus, here's an alternative build. This build will give you total skills of Focus 5, Water 3. But not so fast. Let's dive in deeper so you understand how this build might play out. Alright, so we're dealing with a Focus 3 build versus Focus 5 build, and we need to know which is truly better. As per mhn.quest, you'll notice something like this. We are looking at alternative Focus 5, Water 3, recommended Focus 3, Water 5, and the old build, Focus 2, Water 5. You can ignore that. These are damage numbers of the Giratodes weapon. The Focus 5 build overtakes the Focus 3 build by a 0.8% margin. That is a really low margin, but it still overtakes. So which is truly better in actual gameplay? If you paid attention earlier, you might be able to predict that the Focus 3 Water 5 build would do you more justice. Just because elemental attack is generally more beneficial at all weapon grades under 10.2. But here's something else to support in favor of the Focus 3 build. The grey line represents Focus 3 Water 5, while the blue line represents Focus 5 Water 3. Ignore the orange for now. Focus 3 build wins all the way. This doesn't make much sense if you adapt the numbers from mhn.quest. But actually, here it's been adjusted to take into account some realistic assumptions. Here's an explanation from researcher Pt.2.
There are different assumptions I make here from mhn.quest. The big one is that I penalize higher level of focus in my calculations. 2 reasons. When using higher focus levels, the circle moves faster, so it's harder to release the charge perfectly, and also time is wasted sometimes when you charge faster, but have to stop or wait to dodge or reposition, so I discount the focus bonus by 25%. So instead of 30% at Focus 5, I only use 22.5%.
Hope that further solidifies your understanding for why Focus 3 Water 5 is the superior build. Now, there is a third build here represented by the orange line, running Water 4 and Focus 4. But also as per this chart, it wouldn't be a good choice over Focus 3. It also rates the lowest as per mhn.quest, so don't pay too much mind. Next up, Thunder. In the old setup, we used to run 5 Thunder with just 3 focus. In the new recommended Thunder set, you can now run 4 focus and 5 Thunder. Here's the alternative set where you'll be running 5 in focus and 4 in Thunder instead. Again, this build is at best recommended if your weapon grade is at 10.2 and above. I've explained a lot previously, so this one will be quick and repeated. Even though Focus 5 build is looking better than Focus 4 as per mhn.quest, just remember that the trend looks more like this. You're going to want more in elemental attack and less in focus as long as your weapon is under 10.2. Additionally, as mentioned earlier, in actual gameplay, you should discount the Focus 5 bonus from 30% to 22.5% to account for realistic gameplay. So with this assumption, Focus 4 Elemental Attack 5 will always be recommended for optimal performance. Next up, Ice. In the old setup, we used to run 5 Ice with just 3 focus. In this new set, you'll be running 4 focus with 5 ice attack. Here is the expert set running 5 focus with 4 ice instead. This is for weapon grades 10.2 and above. This is a repeated explanation, so I'll be quick. Even though Focus 5 build is looking better than Focus 4 as per mhn.quest, just remember that the trend looks more like this. You're going to want more in elemental attack and less in focus as long as your weapon is under 10.2. Additionally, as mentioned earlier, in actual gameplay you should discount the Focus 5 bonus from 30% to 22.5%. So with this assumption, Focus 4 Elemental Attack 5 will always be recommended for optimal performance. Fire weapon choices. Azure rathalos. Playstyle wise, the Azure rathalos bow playstyle is medium close range, rapid with spread. Rapid type shots rarely ever struggle against any particular monster, and rapid is kinda the best in between for both solo and multiplayer, so chances are this bow will give you the most consistent results across all hunts as compared to the rathalos and Anjanath bows. And in my opinion, rapid type bows demand lesser skill, so you'll probably just always be a beast on it and not even sweat. It's also my personal favorite shot type, but it's going to be a challenge to farm up, so we might need an additional event like what happened for Pink Radiant and Black Diabolus in New Year's. Rathalos. This is the next best fire element weapon choice just from high base stats, but with pierce type shots. Accuracy with aiming and positioning is everything. Ever since the major weapon rebalances, the drop-off from non-critical distance shots can be quite punishing for pierce users, and maintaining accuracy is important for all your pierce shots to deal full damage, otherwise it's not going to be very good. On average, only about 4 of 6 pierce shots tend to land properly, but it's still a good bow. Though difficult to farm up, do your best during the Azure Rathalos week, as there will be spawn up for Rathalos as well. Anjanath. This spread bow is a great option for solo, as you can hug the monster quite easily. It can be quite a pain in multiplayer though. Rising Tide does compensate a little for its lower base stats. I'm personally a fan of the Anja bow playstyle, but one thing I can tell you is that you do need to be a good dodger. Do not underestimate the Anja bow, especially for solo, as you can easily land all 6 of your shots whenever you're in close range. This is still a very viable bow, and is much easier to farm up. Water weapon choices. Jura Totus. We only have the Jura to choose from. Until they release another water monster, this is all we have for now. Coral Puke maybe? Jura is a lower tier weapon, but it's rapid type, so that's still good at least. Thunder weapon choices. Kadachi. The free-to-play option at easy to farm bow. It's pierce type though, so I don't exactly prefer it. I'm only used to it because I play the Black Diabolus bow, but really, I'd play rapid all the time if I could. Zenoga. For whales or the free-to-play long grind. It not only has much greater base stats, it's also a rapid bow. You get the picture. Xeno bow is just great. The Legiana equivalent, but for thunder. Good for solo, good for multiplayer, good for everything. Ice weapon choices. Berioth. I don't quite like the idea of this bow. It's not only a lower tier bow, but playing spread against the current Ice Week monsters, Diablos, Black Diablos, and Zenoga, would that really be a good idea? Any Berioth Ice bow players here? Do share your experiences. Legiana. The Legi bow is superior in all aspects. Its rapid type has 2 points in Divine Blessing, amen, and it's higher in base stats. Zenoga equivalent, but for ice. So I will be recommending this into the dawn of time until something better comes out. Now, Partbreaker builds. Partbreaker builds are best run with raw bows. Of course, you'll want to be using a Black Diablos bow that comes with 1 Partbreaker at grade 8. But no worries if you don't have that. There is no change with the original Partbreaking build on Azure Rathalos update, so here it is. you'll be running 4 in Partbreaker and 3 in Focus. 5 Partbreaker with a grade 8 Black Diables bow. However, there is an alternative build that I recommend only for grade 8 and above Black Diables bows, and I call this build the Critical Distance Manager. The Critical Distance Manager has 5 in Focus and 3 in Partbreaker. This is good in general as you do not need that much in Partbreaker levels, if you know how to manage your critical distance. If you're unsure about what I mean, check this 1-minute guide out on how Partbreaker ignores critical distance. It will help you play with this build. So you can keep 5 focus on, we all know it's addictive. Also for 8-star monsters, Wyvern Gem Shard on broken part is only given by 1 part, or usually the wings. So in that scenario, you don't really need that much in Partbreaker. Before I end this video, here is a damage comparison chart of all bows in their optimal setups, aka raw recommended build and elemental expert builds. Black Diables is still the best all-purpose weapon. Across all elementals, Rathalos is the strongest, followed by the Zinogre and Legiana bows, which are equally matched. Following very closely behind is the Azure Rathalos bow. Kodachi, Anja, and Barrioth are pretty similar, with poor Gyrotodes being the weakest element at the moment. Diablos rates the lowest. All in all, here's an updated bow weapons tier list for easier visualization. If there are any changes, we'll try to keep you guys updated. Surprise fact. Here's a correlation to help you understand how good the Black Diables bow is. The fast charge bow takes 4.1 seconds to charge and fire at focus 0, whereas all other regular charge bows take 4.2 seconds at focus 5. So essentially, the Black Diables bow has inherent focus 5. That's how good this bow is, all things considered. Alright guys, that's all I have. If you found this helpful, please leave a like for the YouTube algorithm or share your thoughts in the comments. It will help the video be discovered by more. Again, all damage charts and build infographics are available in the link in my description box for your further reference. I hope they help you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I wish you guys all the best for the upcoming Azure Rathalos event. Happy hunting, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye-bye!